This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Jeff Gardner.
Welcome to another episode of the Good Neighbor Podcast. Today we have another good neighbor on, Jack Kerr with Donaldson Capital. Jack, welcome to the show, man.
Pleasure for having me, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Awesome, man. Looking forward to the conversation. I like letting people know, like some of our clients come on here, some businesses that we've worked with for a long time. And, you know, I already have intimate details of them and their business, but the vast majority of people that come on, we don't. So we're in the mindset of the audience and we just kind of let our curiosity drive the conversation. That's where you are. So I'm really looking forward to learning more. So why don't we just start right at the top? What is Donaldson Capital? What do you do, Jack?
Donaldson Capital is a mortgage brokerage based out of Toronto, but we primarily focus on the Toronto and Muskoka markets. And then I live in Barrie, so a lot of my clientele are in the Simcoe County, Toronto, of course, market, and Muskoka. And we're a small boutique brokerage. We have help finance everything from residential, first-time buyers, all the way to commercial, second home properties. Kind of a do-it-all brokerage, which is great.
Awesome, man. And do you have, so we deal with a number of mortgage brokers. They are a pretty good partner for us as we focus on affluent communities. So we look for high-ticket, high-end service items, high-end service businesses. So mortgage brokers are up there, but some focus on residential, some focus on commercial. Do you have, for your part of the business, a focus on residential or commercial, or both?
I do both.
Yeah,
I do both. So I have a good mixture. A lot of my client base falls in that residential bracket, but I do deal in a lot of commercial files as well.
Awesome, man. And so there's a couple of, at least for me, I imagine the audience feels the same way, but there's a couple of like fundamental questions to this podcast that we really like to ask. They all have their purpose, but there's a few that really kind of peel back the layers into what makes it interesting to be an entrepreneur and having the impact that we have on our sphere. So one of those questions is the story behind it. So there's only a handful of things that I talk about in my life, period. Entrepreneurship is one of them, doing hard things, fitness is a big part of my life, mentorship. But I have a great deal of respect for anybody that runs their own business, as it's a hard path. So, and that. So I like to, when we ask about why you got into this, I kind of like to change the question slightly, is why decide to run your own show, as it's difficult? And then why get into this industry? Why get into the mortgage industry? What led you to this? What's the journey?
Yeah, that's a great question. It is interesting running your own business, and then mortgage business or any type of client-facing business. It's an interesting business to run and operate. There's a lot, and we could probably get into that. And I'm sure that because you have familiarity with the industry, you probably know a lot of that already, like you said. I found myself in a sales role after like college when I was working with Rogers, and then went on to work in a cell phone sales role in a mall, in the Georgian Mall in Barrie, and I was there for 7 years. Throughout that time, of course, I'll go even back a little bit further. Drew Donaldson is, of course, the founding owner of Donaldson Capital. He's actually my brother-in-law. So he married my sister back in 2009. And from there, I've seen him, of course, his growth in the industry over the last 15 years. And that, of course, intrigued me. I've watched him help countless of people enter the market. And like I said, his growth in the business, going from, of course, mortgage agent, mortgage broker, and then a partner at Safebridge Financial, and then owning his own brokerage at Donaldson Capital. So it always came down to me wanting to follow in the footsteps of him. I really liked the real estate industry. I didn't want to be a realtor though. I wanted my weekends. I like that 9 to 5, but I still help clients on weekends. I find myself helping clients on weekends a lot, but that comes with that service and providing that to your clients. But anyways, I didn't want to be driving around showing people houses. I really like the financing side of things. But being able to help people with their biggest purchase in their life really was something that I found to be a driver for me. And then, so after I was working at Wireless Wave and in the mall there, I got my mortgage license, my mortgage agent license, just around COVID. So I started in 2020. I got licensed, I want to say like April, maybe even April, around this time. And then went full time in 2020, which then has led me to about 4 years in the industry. And then last year I got my mortgage broker's license, which allows me to just do a little bit more for my clients when it comes to private financing. And I work a lot on the private side of things as well as your institutional banks. But yeah.
Love it. It's amazing the impact that when we have a reverence for somebody else, as I said, 2 minutes ago, mentorship has absolutely changed my life from being a mentee,
Absolutely.
but also being a mentor to other people is extremely fulfilling. So it's just amazing how when you can see somebody else do something, you're like, I can picture myself doing that, and then following in their footsteps like your brother-in-law. It's very cool. Something that I haven't asked somehow, or I asked and forgot the answer, but you were just talking about it slightly. Can you dive into the difference a little bit more between a mortgage agent and a mortgage broker?
Yeah. So a mortgage agent, they did just change the rules recently, but it's typically you had to be a mortgage agent for 2 years. And after 2 years, you could then go and get your mortgage broker's license. Now, at that point, you can then become a principal broker. So you can own your own brokerage. And then you can also underwrite and commit on your own private deals. So when you're dealing with an individual private lender, so let's say, Jeff, you wanted to invest $100,000 into a mortgage, but you're not a mortgage administrator. You don't own a mortgage company. You just want to invest your money into a mortgage. You would need a mortgage broker, and then of course you're a real estate lawyer to do that. But if you were dealing with a mortgage agent, they don't have the capacity or the proper licensing to do that, where a mortgage broker has to sign off on that transaction.
Okay, so you essentially have more tools and more education to help people in a greater way when it comes to
that's
mortgages.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So that's awesome. I love how that story started. So you said you like the financing side. I mean, I totally get the 9 to 5 part compared to a real estate agent. And I love that you said, I'm still finding myself helping clients on the weekends, the life of an entrepreneur. Like, when you're building something, you just find yourself doing it all the time, especially if you enjoy it, and our commitment to catering to our clients. So I love that you said that. But what was it about the numbers? Have you just always been a numbers guy? Like, do they just make sense to you?
Not at all.
Not at all. Best answer you could have given me. So what brought you to a side where you're dealing with numbers so much?
I think it's one of those things, like I love solving problems. So sure, numbers weren't my specialty. I wasn't great in school. I mean, if you ask anyone that I was in school with back in the day, they'll say, yeah, Jack wasn't the smartest guy. Like, I never was, but and that's the thing with entrepreneurs. If you find something that you love to do, you find a way to do it. Right. Yeah. So again, the numbers isn't necessarily a thing. We have tools on our phone. We have tools on our computer, every single thing. So again, I'm not saying that it's simple to do. You have to understand how to structure files, how to look at things different ways, but we have the tools to be able to make it work. Now it's funny, like I'm actually a lot better with numbers now after you're in 4 years in the business and seeing numbers all the time. My wife always laughs, like, how do you calculate something that quick? And it's like, well, you figure out different tricks and tools to do that in your head, right? So that's pretty funny in itself. But yeah, I think that answers your question. Was I good at math? Did I like numbers? No, I didn't, but now I love them. I love finding solutions. I think that's the biggest thing that comes from that answer.
Yeah. And that's certainly my takeaway from it. I think you nailed it when you said, whatever happens during school, there's certainly a value to it, but I don't think it's a great indicator of what that person's going to do in their future, because if they get a hold of something that drives their curiosity and they become passionate about it, they can do just about anything. And that's what you were saying.
Some of the best minds never even went to high school, let alone finish grade school.
So many of them, many of them, it's countless. But I love that point. You give something, and they're like a dog with a bone with it. They just grab a hold of it and create something great. But in addition to that, the sense of fulfillment that you get from solving problems. It's really not all of us are in that mindset. I think the brain, when you tap into that mindset, is just almost unstoppable. But some of us limit ourselves and don't like the discomfort that comes with butting up against a problem. But I do find that as a common thread for the entrepreneurs that we work with. We talk to them all day, every day, whether on the podcast or meeting one-to-one out there in the world. There is this need, there is this enjoyment from getting creative, as I never considered myself a creative person. I love music, didn't want to play it. In the typical sense of creative, you think of art, you think of music, engineering, architecture. I loved sales and negotiation, and I didn't consider myself a creative person. But you end up building a business, and I've been doing this for a little over a decade, and there's a creative side to it, and it's really analyzing a problem and finding a new creative way to tackle it. So you find that to be stimulating, like just super enjoyable to look at this person's having this problem. I can look at it, restructure it, and find an answer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's like, again, the business. So we deal in purchases, we deal in refinances, maybe it be consolidating debt. So some of your largest problems, it might just be you're buying a property that it's on a cookie cutter. So you got to figure out different solutions or different ways that you can look at it to help position that to a lender to get the financing that you need. But then on the other side, it could be a problem with financing, and the people need to consolidate some debt to be able to continue to cash flow their lifestyle or their life in general, not just like a lifestyle. So that's a problem. You want to see how you can position that. And then there's also just your straightforward cookie cutter files. Someone that comes to you as a first time buyer and they have your typical income and everything like that. There's still not problems to be found in that, but there's still ways that you can benefit that client. May it be their interest rate or the terms of the mortgage, because there's so many things that come into a mortgage versus just the rate. So that's, again, it's educating the clients on those things. And the benefit of dealing with a high volume brokerage like Donaldson Capital is, again, we can just go into a quick thing, the rate on the rate side of things. If someone's shopping for their first time home, they see all these special rates advertised here and there. We're able to beat some of those rates and give the best terms, where sometimes those sweet rates that they see online have fine print that they don't see in them and stuff like that. We can go into a little bit more depth about that, but I really find that solving those problems is definitely a huge driver. And again, not always a problem. Sometimes it's just different solutions.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's and I imagine even cookie cutter or I'll just say that in the world of entrepreneurship, it's very rare that you get the same thing over and over again. So I imagine you're looking at a new complication, obstacle, problem, just constantly learning new ways. But I'm thinking about right now, first-time home buyers is a big part of your business.
Yes, it can be. When I say it can be, is different markets come different things, right? But right now specifically, there's a lot of first-time buyers entering the market. Prices of homes are a bit down. As you can imagine, like there's so many factors right now, but qualification is an issue. But if you have good income, usually dual income household with the available down payment, you have access to the ability to be able to get into the market now. So I am seeing an uptick in first-time buyers. But like I said, I have a wide range of clients that I work with. But right now, probably 50% of them are first-time buyers.
Okay.
If I was to look at all my clients in the last 60 days.
Okay. So that's a big chunk. So for the person listening right now, because there will be first-time home buyers listening right now, there will be people that, just buy and sell homes as a part of their wealth portfolio. There's going to be some very affluent listeners. Listen, just the whole scale of audience, really. So what I'm thinking about right now is all the time that you spent doing this. Is there one or two, three main tips that you can provide to these listeners that are like, okay, if you're a first-time home buyer, make sure you check these two boxes that can really provide them with some help. Because I think in my world, like even with dealing with so many mortgage agents and brokers, I still don't think about it that much. And I still know very, very little about it. And I'm soon to buy my first house. I've always been a renter, but now moving out to Barrie, that's what I'm looking to do is buy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still very, very uncertain to me. It's still more of a question mark than a certainty. So are there any like main takeaways that you could provide us that'll be like, okay, now that seed's planted, I will know to check that box when I go buy my first home?
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to the specific scenario of the person. Like, but yeah, it comes down to income, your number one factor when it comes to getting a pre-approval. So if let's say we're just talking about the mortgage side of things, you're going to want to get a pre-approval. You want to know what your max purchasing power is. So the three things that are involved in that, of course, are your income, your credit score, and then your down payment. And people will say that over and over again, but it's very, very straightforward. That's the three things that a lender or myself are going to look at to say, Jeff, this is what you qualify for in a mortgage. Is it's your income, your credit, and your down payment. And then even in like our typical conversations, we just get a better understanding of what the client may have when it comes to debts or monthly payments, may that be car payments, student loan, and we can factor in how their credit's going to look without even pulling a credit score necessarily, just a quick conversation. But yeah, credit scores is important. Usually you want to have a credit score above 680 to be in that best interest rate bracket. But we do have lenders that will go down to around 620. 620 usually is your lowest credit score. And then income, of course, so many different factors when it comes to income. Maybe you be a small business owner, a self-employed, or if you're employed, we show job letter pay stubs for that. Self-employed borrowers, there's different programs available for you to be able to qualify for a mortgage, as long as you're putting 10% down on the purchase. And yeah, like pension income, different things like that to look at income source.
Now that 10%, was that the down payment you're talking about? That's what you're looking for people to put down, typically 10% or more? Or did
self-employed?
Self-employed.
Yeah. Okay. So again, there's a self-employed program that allows you to use like a stated income. So if you're if you're either 2 years in business or less than 2 years, you can use like a stated income scenario for it, but it has to be 10% down payment. Where if you want to put the 5% income or 5% down payment, you have to base your income off the last 2 years of what you claim on your T1 generals if you're self-employed, and that's line 150 on your T1 general.
Okay. So I have, just about 10 years self-employment. I have my T1. Yeah. So you will be able to see what those last minimum 9, the first year was pretty wonky.
Yeah.
First year business, right? Made a lot of mistakes, but then each year got a little bit better. So you'll be able to see the record, essentially, like what has been recorded income wise. And then if my credit score is decent, 620 and above, and I'm making a decent income, I can pay as low as 5% down payment.
That's correct. And there's a structure to your down payment too. Our average house price in Canada is about $780 right now. So for 5% down, that's for every dollar below 500,000, right? So it's $25,000 for the first 500,000. If your purchase price is above 500,000, so let's say you're purchasing at 750, you have to put 10% on every dollar above 500,000. So that's 250,000 is more than that 500,000. So you'd put 25,000 plus 25,000. That would be your minimum down payment on that house. So it'd be $50,000 down.
$50,000 down for a $750,000 home.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know why I had 20% in my head. This is what I mean. Even with dealing as many mortgage brokers as I do, I haven't had to ask this question yet because I've been renting. So now that seems like a huge mortgage. Your suggestion would be put more than that if you can, I'm imagining, but they can go as low as 5%, decent credit score, shouldn't be too much of an interest rate. This is happening out there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I've helped 2 or 3 clients this week purchase prices like homes around that price, and put the minimum down payment down, and they can debt service the mortgage payments. They're okay with them. We usually have the conversation of when's rates going to come down. Should we take a fixed variable? There's a lot of conversations that go into that.
Can you give us any insight into our interest rates?
Yeah. So if you're going to go fixed, I would suggest a 2 to 3 year fix right now. I wouldn't go anything longer than 3 year fixed. And then you could go variable, but that variable, how it works, it's a prime rate, which is 7.2% with most banks. And then as a buyer, first time buyer, is insured mortgage, you're going to get around 9, or well, let's say 1% discount off that prime rate. So your interest rate is going to be 6.2% for a variable mortgage right now, where on a fixed mortgage, I can get you a 3-year fixed around 5.2%, maybe 5.24 or 29 with the way bond markets have been the last couple of weeks. But that's a difference of about 1%. And we're probably going to see rates come down over the next 2 years, maybe 2.5 years. Again, we just don't know what the economic forecast is really doing. Like they said we were going to see cuts in March and April. And now we're looking maybe later this year for our first one, and maybe only 2 this year. So there's a lot of conversations happening. And if you really understand the economics of rates, we can't change our rates before the US do. If we do, our dollar goes in the tank. So yeah, that 2 to 3 year fixed range would be a good start. And that's 90% of my clients are taking 3-year fixed right now.
Okay. So then they can reevaluate after that 2 to 3 years and make their
That's
decision
correct.
based on the current, rates at that time.
Yeah. So in 3 years, their bank's going to offer them a renewal. And that's where they come back to me and say, hey, Scotiabank's offering me or this rate, what can you do? And then we look at that and analyze it together, see what makes sense. If I can get them a better rate with a different lender, then we look at that option. But we can also negotiate with the current lenders that you're with. Anyways, there's so many benefits of working with a broker on that side of things. But yeah, in 3 years, we'd reevaluate the situation and see where we're at. Most likely, we're going to be in a different scenario at that point. Hopefully, at a new normal, if we want to call it. And we're hoping to get in that 4% range. I mean, we were at historic lows of interest rates for too long, and that's why we're in this situation. So we don't want to go back. I know all of us want those low rates of 1.5% to 2%, but
there's a downside to it.
There is. It's free money, right? It's free money. If it's less than the rate of inflation and all this stuff, then we're just creating a hole that all future generations have to try and dig ourselves out of. So
we always got to, somebody's going to have to pay that bill at some point. So I agree with you. That penny wise, pound foolish. It would be great to have no interest, but at the cost of what? Right. What's going to happen to our economy at some point? It seems inevitable.
Absolutely.
So none of that was on the questionnaire, but I really appreciate you letting us dive into that, because it's valuable information for me, because I'm moving towards this position. And I just don't think many of us know as much as we could know with just asking a few questions really about the psychology of money, even just saving, a little wealth creation, taxes, mortgage, none of these things. To just know the basics is all that difficult, but we often don't get taught in school. And if you didn't grow up in a house that teaches that, I grew up in a banker's house. So, as a teenager, certain wealth creation was already starting that my friends had no idea, just an RSP, tax-free savings account, just a credit card as a teenager to start building credit. Anyways, I appreciate you letting me pick at you a little bit there, because I think that's really valuable information. And one of the things we wanted to do. Yeah.
Have you looked at the first-time homebuyer savings account yet?
No.
You mentioned RSP.
No.
First-time homebuyer savings account is something new the Canadian government came out with last year. It's similar to a TFSA, but then it has the benefits of an RRSP. So it actually goes against your taxable income, and
like an RSP.
Like an RSP.
Well, I can have both.
But you can have both. You can have all three. You could have a TFSA, first-time homebuyer savings account, and an RRSP. The max you can put into the first-time homebuyer savings account is $8,000 a year. So you can put $8,000 in. It is good. So you can put $8,000 in for 2023, and then $8,000 for 2024, and then you can take it out to buy your house, and you don't have to pay it back like an RRSP. Where an RRSP you have to pay back within 15 years, 15 years.
Okay. So that, again, that's what I mean. You ask a couple of questions and you get some really valuable information. Another $16,000 towards my annual income tax reduction is significant. For me, I'm not making $40,000 a month or anything, but even still, that's an extra $16,000. So that's great. Now the TSFA, tax-free TFSA. Does that go towards taxable income? I didn't think so. It's just a tax shelter.
That's correct. So any funds put into that, and if you earn interest, is tax-free.
Right. And I could take that out as I please with no payback I can do whatever
That's
I want with
correct.
it, essentially. Okay. And
Yeah,
you have
but
a
the
limit.
first time home buyers account, you don't have to pay it back, but you do have to take it out to buy a house.
Is that the only thing that you can take it out for?
Yes,
Okay. Okay.
I believe so. And I was looking it up, but maybe we'll do that after, and we can circle back around on that. But because
Sure.
I won't look it up now. I have I have two screens, my computer screen and my two screens. So you can imagine I could get pretty nutty real quick looking up stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I got a similar setup at the headquarters right here. They're all over the place.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
on the topic of quality information, we talk about myths and misconceptions out there for what we were just diving into. If I have incorrect or suboptimal information in my head, I'm now making decisions based on suboptimal information. So there are people out there, certainly, any category in life, that have information that they heard from somebody that was not entirely correct, that broken telephone idea. So what kind of myths, misconceptions can you clarify for us that people are thinking out there right now about the world of mortgages, the mortgage industry? Anything come to mind?
Number one is that you have to pay for our service, right? They don't realize. And then, well, actually, probably there's three things, but let's say one, pay for our service. Number two is we don't get access to the same to all the big banks. We deal with private lenders only. So we only deal with private mortgages, or we don't necessarily work with the big banks. So that's false, right? We have access to basically the majority of the big banks: TD, Scotiabank, BMO, National Bank. The only one that I don't have access to is RBC and CIBC. So they are our competition, but not necessarily because they're not in the same space as us. But we do compete with them on a rate level and whatnot, and trying to help clients see the difference between them, because each lender has its own differences when it comes to your mortgage terms. And then, is there a third? Yeah, I would say the rate, and then that we don't deal with all the big banks. But the biggest thing that I tell my clients, if they've gotten a pre-approval from their bank, they have, like you said, they talk to that advisor, they've gotten advice, rates, whatever the case may be. Having an unbiased second conversation with me, where of course I'm not going to push them, I'm not going to try and sell them on my service. There's nothing of that. I'm just going to say, hey, Jeff, what did you get offered? What are you looking to do? And this is my opinion. I'm either going to say that's a great rate. They have the exactly what I would do, they're doing for you. So that's a great rate. If there is something that I see that could be done differently, or maybe that I can offer a better rate, again, it's not always about rate, but rate comes up a lot when you're shopping for a mortgage. It's just that unbiased opinion. At the end of the day, if I don't help you with this mortgage, if I give you that advice, not pushy, that just I'm here for you, hopefully you come back to me in 2 to 3 years when your mortgage matures and says, hey, Jack, you helped me out, you gave me advice, told me to go this direction, you weren't pushy. I'm going to come back and talk to you in a couple of years when my mortgage matures, and hopefully we can do business then. Or you're going to send your friends, whoever. But at the end of the day, I just want to help people make sure that they're getting the best mortgage possible.
One of the main reasons we have this is what you just said. And the main reason we invite people on here is we want to provide quality education without asking for anything in return, which is basically what you just said. Somebody calls you up, I'm going to help you out. And just to clarify for the audience what I'm talking about, when you say there's no rate for you, or I don't want to say we don't pay you, because you guys get paid somehow. How does that work? If I call you up, I say, Jack, listen, we talked on the podcast, I'm now at that point of buying. Here's what TD gave me. Can you take a look at this? Are you going to charge me for that conversation? How does that work?
No, I won't charge you for that conversation. And then if TD is offering you 5.5%, 5.4, whatever, I'll say, well, Jeff, I can beat this rate for sure. This is what TD offers in the case of a term mortgage. Maybe they do some cash back, whatever the case. And I can say, this is what I could do with one of our other trusted lenders. What do you think about this? And if you end up going with me and we get an approval and we close that mortgage, that's when I get paid, right? I work with TD. So if I close a mortgage with TD, TD pays me to bring the mortgage to them. No fees to you, no extra costs. It's funny, there's probably, 3 out of 4 times that someone would come to us and they're a bank employee, and I'll beat the rate that they were offered by their bank. even though I'm making money, sure, in the back end, I'm still beating their, because it's volume discounts and relationships, right? There's so much that goes into that. So anyways, that's funny in itself. Or someone comes from their bank and they're like, hey, they're offering me this. I'm like, well, I'm going to bring you to that same bank, but I'm going to give you this, right?
Which is,
no fee.
It's just really valuable information. So at no time am I ever swiping my card. You're never sending me a bill to pay you. You get paid from the lender. Am I using the term correctly?
Yep. Or the bank, whatever you want to call them. But
yeah. So that's huge to know, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that are proactive out there that want to reach out for good information, but we're just conditioned to believe that if I'm going to ask you for something, I should expect there to be that reciprocity in the form of typically money. That's the thing that us consumers barter with. If I want something from you in the form of education or service, my bartering tool is my money. I don't know that everybody knows that. And although I've heard this a number of times from the clients we work with, it's so valuable, because what you can learn from a phone call can make a drastic difference. I think some of us see the big banks and we think big equals successful. We think staying power, like TD Bank being around for whatever it is, I don't know, 80 years, 100 years, however long it's been, that must mean good as well. So maybe we don't think about a mortgage broker. We just think the bank. But you guys are there for a reason. And there's as many of you as there are for a reason. And I think maybe there's a good portion of people missing out on that because they just don't have the right information. So I really appreciate you clarifying that information for us, because you said it at the beginning. If not the biggest purchase of your life for the vast majority of us, then in the top largest purchases the vast majority of us will ever make. So to have this good information before you just go and do these things is just crucial.
Yeah, and having someone in your corner, and like you touched on too, like having a financial planner, accountant. Like there's so many people. It's just, I want to be an addition to your team. I want to be an addition to, if it's you and your spouse, and then you have your support team when it comes to the people that file your taxes and plan for your finances and life insurance. And we all want to come together and work together, and a good team will do that for you and continue to help you grow your family's wealth.
Which is so, it's just one of the things I talk about all the time. It comes back. What is the core of what I'm about to say? Time. I value time more than anything else, because it's the thing I need to build my relationship with my partner or my team or my health or whatever it is. So for me to learn how to do taxes on my own, or to learn how to do investing on my own, or to learn how to pick a house and sell a house on my own, all of these things are a litany of new skills that I'm going to be learning on my own, which means I'm probably not going to be very good at. They're going to be arduous and time consuming. So I'm a big, big proponent in seeking out experts and building that team, as you said, which again, I don't know that a lot of people are doing that. They think as soon as I reach out to the expert, it's just like a renovator. I'm going to do my own drywall or my own tile to save a few bucks from getting the person in here. Whereas I don't know, just the world that I've been in, my mindset has been flipped entirely 180 to that. Whereas if I get this person, it's going to save me time. It's going to decrease my stress. And I know the information is going to be way better than what I could produce, because I've never delved into that world. So I'm a big proponent of getting your team, especially when it comes to wealth creation and plugging all those leaky holes in the boat, as that's one of the big parts to money. I don't think I'll ever be making $1 million a year. I'm just not in that world, but I want to have a level of wealth that fits the needs of my life. And a big part of that is optimizing what I'm actually making and creating out there. And for me to optimize it, I need people like you guys. It's just as simple as that in my head.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
So pivoting from business, talk about Jack a little bit. Let's start off with an easy one. Outside of business, what puts a smile on your face, man? What do you do for fun?
Well, of course, my daughter, she's 3.5, and my wife, we've been married since 2016. So coming on 8 years. Yep. And then for fun, of course, we like to do drives. We like to spend time with each other. And then I love golfing. And I actually recently got into paintballing again, funny enough. So I used to play it when I was younger. That. I know. It's very, very, people like paintball. Isn't it like where you run through the woods? Well, actually I play speedball. So it's where the blow up bunkers, and it's very, very close combat. And I got back into it a couple years ago. It's just something that I do with my brother-in-law. He's 21. He actually has the same birthday as me. So anyways, he's 21 and I'm 33 this year.
Not the brother-in-law that owns Donaldson Capital.
No,
I was going to say.
I got three brother-in-laws because I'm a only boy of 3 girls. So my 2 sisters have husbands, and then my wife has a brother.
Cool, man. Nice little group of you. So what do you get out of the paintballing? I mean, I know the golf, I know the family, the relationship with your daughter, but most people on here are not coming on saying, did you say 31?
33.
33. That they're into paintballing, which I just love that. What do you get out of it? Why do you go?
It's really cool in that close combat. Like, it's not your typical woods ball. You're not running through the woods. You're literally 75 feet from the next guy that's shooting at you, and it's really fast paced. And of course, the fitness side of thing. And I know health and fitness, you said, was a huge thing in your life. Mm-hmm. And over the last 2 years, I actually I've lost almost 100 pounds. So a lot of people looking at me would be like, holy crap. But I joined a local fitness coach in 2021 and 2022. And this July will be my 2 years. And I'm at 94 or 95 pounds down.
Damn. Yeah. So prior to helping businesses scale was personal training. I started as an employee at Good Life, and then I opened up my own gym. And during that phase, I learned how to scale my business and became so passionate about it because it changed my whole life. I was just an individual personal trainer, working day and night, because if you're not training somebody, you're not making money. But to build a team and have an admin and all that kind of stuff, that I became very passionate about scaling businesses, also way more profitable. But that fitness is it's the foundation to my life for sure. Movement, nutrition, sleep. But to lose 100 pounds in 2 years, when I have my clients, I still have some clients on the weekend. I work at an addictions facility as a counselor and kind of fitness trainer there. This kind of little collaboration of 2 disciplines. But we shoot for about 1 pound to 1.5 pounds weight gain or weight loss per week. And to do that for 12 weeks, sure. To do that for 20 weeks, now it's getting a little bit harder. But to do that for 100 weeks, that's commitment, man. Good for you. Jesus.
Appreciate it.
That feels good, though,
appreciate
right?
It does. Yeah, I was pushing that. I probably was at one point. I don't know if you'll do like a slideshow or anything, but I'm sure people could go to my Instagram, and I know that's one of your questions. How can you find me? But I have a few pictures on my social media of progress pictures. My last progress picture that he posted probably isn't my most updated pic, but anyways, it's crazy. I was pushing that 300 pound mark. Now I'm below 200. First time that I've been there in since I've been probably 21. So it feels really good. So getting back into paintball again, I love that fitness side of it, like running around, and it's really cool. It's really cool.
I love that, man. It's just the greatest thing. There is nothing, if I don't feel good, the rest of it is effective massively. Even if my life is perfect on the outside, if I don't feel good about me, all of that's being impacted. And then the flip side of that, if life is really shit on the outside, like living through COVID, something that is outside of your control, but you feel great, you're giving your body what it needs and your mind what it needs, you handle all that stuff so much more effectively. You're so much more resilient. And a lot of people walk past the mirror and walk very quickly past it. They don't want to see it. Yeah. Other people are like, man, I've put some work into this. Like, this is my own little, statue that I'm carving out of muscle rather than porcelain or granite, which I would argue is way harder and a way longer period of time. And for people to be proud about their bodies, I think is an incredible thing, which, in society, you would call that person vain. So that is an amazing accomplishment. You're probably part of a very, very small group of people who set a goal that lofty and actually accomplished it. So kudos to you, man. That is an amazing transformation.
I appreciate that. My goal at the beginning was like 20 pounds.
Right?
Because you can imagine, like, I lived like that for 10 years of being like overweight and not happy with myself. And when I got introduced to the guy, he's like, well, what's your goal? And I was like, I'd be happy with 20 pounds. And I thought I weighed maybe 250. And then when I found out I weighed 290, I was like, okay. But it didn't change my goal. The only time I changed my goal is when I reached the 40-pound mark, because it was coming off really quick. I think it was in 20 weeks that I lost 40 pounds.
Jesus.
And I was like, okay, like I'm dialed in. I saw so many changes in my life. Of course, my mental side of things, performance at work, it changes your life when you do change the view of yourself. So, and then I set some new goals, and then I didn't think that I'd get to 100 pounds. So, got to start small and then just keep going. And then last year I was going to show I won the weight loss. What it was, it top transformation of 2023. So I think there was where you can see that top transformation of 2023. So
the Ditch Your Dad Bod Blueprint, is that what it's called?
Yeah, that's correct.
Awesome.
Yeah,
so good, man.
Yeah. So I think there was 20 other guys, and again, they range from 40 pounds loss. Like some of them just, anyways, being a fitness trainer, you see so many transformations. And again, I feel humbled to be able to win that. But it's pretty cool with the effect that you have on other people's lives when it comes to what you will do in your personal life. And we've like me and my wife have come through a lot of tough times, and this is just another one that we came out of, and yeah, really appreciate that. The kind words.
It's just amazing, man. It's amazing. That's why I'll never stop doing it. Like, I probably shouldn't be working on weekends because it doesn't give much time to have a partner and to be a father, which for me, that is one of the topics that I like to talk about, although not a father, but it's probably the seeds that have been planted from my dad. I look at that as kind of the pinnacle of manhood. I can't think of anything more important than creating another human and giving a lifelong commitment to it. So I look at fatherhood very highly, but I'm not really providing the space to become a dad at some point. I love the transformation side. When people really tap into what their body is capable of, they're like, I never knew this was the case. So that leads me into the hardship question, which this may be your answer. Maybe you have something else, but very simply put, we try to encourage people to divulge some of their hardships on the show simply because of this. I have my rules for life right here on the skin. So when I'm going through the shit, I have it there. It's not for when things are going well. It's easy to continue on when things are going well. It's when that emotional turmoil bubbles up and I react too quickly. I got my rules. One of them is to do hard things, simply because I think our body is an adaptation machine, body and mind, spirit, if you want to include that. But I think adaptation only comes from butting up against something challenging that you haven't done before. If it's easy, your body is going to say, I've done this before. There's no reason to change. Everything's status quo. But when we talk about failures and societal norms, I think that's something we don't like to shed much light on, because then maybe we're saying that we're a failure and we don't want to be recognized as one, or now we're up for ridicule or embarrassment or judgment. And, other people's judgment is something that a lot of us think about. So we want to be a part of that trend that shines a light on hardships, and that not to look at them in a negative light, but more so as like, through hardship is where you find yourself and find how capable you are. And it can be your launching pad for growth. So we like to encourage guests on the show to, whatever you're comfortable with, to walk us through a hardship that you've experienced that probably felt pretty shitty in the moment, as we know the symptoms the body and mind feels when we're going through something difficult. That's why a lot of us avoid them. But when you look back in hindsight, you wouldn't remove that ingredient from the recipe that is you, because it's led you to living the life that you enjoy now. Anything that you can walk us through?
Yeah, anyone that knows me and my wife personally knows that we went through fertility after we got married. So we went through some fertility struggles. We actually got pregnant with triplets in 2019, and then we lost them in 2019. So again, a lot of people know our story. They follow us on social media and whatnot, and that's been a big thing that we share. May it be through, again, my Ditch Your Dad Bod. I did an episode there, or on social media. And that was, again, right before I got my mortgage license. But it was, anyways, so Scarlett is our daughter. She's 3.5. She's our miracle baby. So after we lost the triplets, we then conceived. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. So we then conceived her in February of 2020, and she was born in November. And by the grace of God, again, my faith is a huge thing, and that came stronger after we lost the triplets. Of course, you go through a lot of personal growth, and yeah, you try and be there for your spouse, and it's a lot. It's anyone that's gone through that, more than willing to have a conversation. People can reach out to me anytime, but it's a very, very difficult time. But that's something that, of course, it then allowed my wife to conceive Scarlett naturally, and we now have a happy family. But that was something that, again, you never wish upon your worst enemy, is losing a child. And from there, again, it just helped with my faith, and then my need to be a better father, and then that led to, of course, fitness, and led towards my mortgage business, and it's, again, just catapulted our growth that way, I think. And we can continue to learn from that struggle, as you will. That never will go away. That's for sure. That loss.
Damn.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. Tugging on the heartstrings over here, pal. But it's amazing what a human can result from going through such a level of suffering individually. I think it's even more special when you have this shared suffering, what people are capable of. What a story, man. On to the next question before we wrap up for the show. Whew, that got me, man. Shit. Took a lot of courage. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff.
I don't put this question in because I don't want people to script it. The podcast really is just for the audience to be a fly on the wall, interesting conversations, right? Just real people having a candid conversation, ripping back and forth. But I said at the beginning, there's a few things that I talk about. One of them is mentorship, and she taught me at a very young age to study things broadly when I was very young, to find out where my interests were, and once I found them, to go deep, to really narrow that path on the 2, 3, 4 things that you think can increase the quality of your life the most. So I only talk about a few things. I only study a few things. One of them is impact. The same mentor around the same time, she really had a great influence over me still in my life. She encouraged me to think about my impact as a human, right? She taught me, you're born, you die. What is in between? She also encouraged me to think about a loftier picture, like my effect on the globe, as I thought my thinking was very limited. It was very small. And she taught me, like, you are connected in some way. You may not be able to see how far that ripple effect goes out, but it goes out quite far. And if you're willing to push yourself to your capabilities, your impact may go well past your passing. So some people like thinking about legacy. Me, not so much. I want to create something pretty cool while I'm here to see it, because when I'm dead, I'm dead. You can't really get much of a feeling once you're gone. The point is that she got me to think very intentionally about my impact. So be much more intentional about my actions. What do I want to actually create? And then move towards that path. She was the first one to teach me that if you don't have a target, you're just floating around. Like, if you don't have a destination to go to, how are you supposed to narrow your path? How are you supposed to figure out who you are? So essentially, we're here one day, we're no longer there another day. What is in between? And we like to ask the guests on the show, like, what do you want your impact to be? Family, community, globe? What are you trying to leave while you're here?
An impact overall. I think over the last couple of years, as I progressed on my weight loss journey, I realized how far my reach was in impacting men specifically. I had a lot of men reach out to me and ask what I'm doing and try and get some guidance. And again, you don't realize the impact that you have on people while you're here. So again, I'd love to. I come from a family like yourself that were. You said you're in banking. My parents were actually in mentorship and business growth. They had their own online business, and they mentored people when it came to business development. So they actually spread across the globe. They spoke in countries across the world. And when it comes to it, I go places, and people mention that they know knew my dad or my mom, whatever the case may be. So I do want to feel that worldwide, that globe reach. May it be, I don't know if it's going to be mortgages that I touch people with. I know I'm going to be doing mortgages for my life because I love it. but there's definitely other sides of what we want to do. May that be helping people with trauma, may that be helping people with family growth, whatever the case may be. I definitely I want to help people locally, but then abroad as well.
It's amazing. One of the common threads, with entrepreneurs is their desire to help others. Whereas many people that are outside of that world, when they think of business, not everybody, I'm not going broad strokes here, but there is a pretty large portion of people that when they think business, the first thing they equate it to is dollars and cents, in greed and accumulating and hoarding. That certainly hasn't been my experience, although that is out there. We live in a capitalistic society, at least a good portion of it, and there's certainly greed. I mean, we are flawed human beings, and greed is a part of it. But what I have found is a much more common thread from the entrepreneurs that we work with, and this is many now, this is almost a decade, having 2 or 3 of these conversations a day, that's hundreds and hundreds of entrepreneurs over this time, is their desire to help other people. And that originally, maybe they started their business to answer a problem in their own life. Like if you can't pay your bills, then you have to answer your money problems first before you can help somebody else. That old idea of getting your house in order before you start helping other people get their house in order. But it seems like this just natural like evolution through entrepreneurship that I've seen so many of them go through, myself included. We started to answer our own obstacles in life. And once those are answered, we're like, okay, well, I don't need to deal with that obstacle anymore. Paying my bills and meeting my necessities are no longer there. What can I do with these skills I've developed? It almost always turns into impacting other people. And now that's the drive, the feeling we get from helping somebody change their life in even the smallest sense. It's just this amazing thing that us human beings share. It's like, simply put, once we can deal with our own shit, now we can help other people deal with their shit. And it helps us evolve. I think in big grand scale, it helps us evolve as a species, but even on a smaller scale, I think it just increases the quality of our life significantly. And most people answer the same way, which I think is a beautiful thing. So I love that. That's what your impact, that's how you look at it, is simply whether I can help you with a mortgage, whether I can help you with trauma, which is something we all go through, and not everybody has the skills to do that. But you have that lived experience, which I personally think is much more valuable than learning from a textbook. If you can combine the two, amazing. But lived experience is man, it's huge. Or fitness or whatever it is. I think it's great that that's your goal, man. It's a very cool thing.
Appreciate that.
How can people find out about you, Jack? If they want to reach out, what's the best way to connect?
Instagram, I'm active on there, and of course, phone number. Are you going to put do you want me to tell people what my contact info is now?
Absolutely. If you're comfortable with it. Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's 705-333-4403 is my cell number.
Okay.
And then jack@donaldsoncapital.com is my email. So jack@donaldsoncapital.com. And then my Instagram is actionjackson_9.
Awesome.
Yeah, Jackson.
And we'll have that all on our social medias and your bio and all that when we go over in the wrap up. So they'll have your contact. But man, this is a great talk. I love these emotional things. I love going deep. Some people won't let me, and I don't like to push, but you just never know what somebody's been through until you ask them about it. And you were honestly courageous enough to answer in the way that you did. I don't know that I could have said what you said. I'm a bit of a crier, a bit of an emotional guy. I'm sure you've talked about it many times. I'm an emotional
guy too. So it takes me a lot to get through it without that, but I've kind of talked about it enough, but there's been a couple moments where I've tried to, and it's just, no,
man.
And again, but you take a moment, and then the person wants to hear it then, or you say, let's take a break and circle back, and then you just get up the strength again. But no, I appreciate that. But I just wanted to say I am an emotional guy too. So I had to hold them back.
And that's one of the things that we try to do on the show, is show that is a level of courage and a level of strength that not a lot of people are willing to confront. anyways, I could keep going on this forever. It was great having you on the show, man. I appreciate you taking me there, bringing us all this great information and bringing it into your life. I think you're a great dude based on what you've shared with us today. And it was just a pleasure chatting with you, man.
Appreciate it, Jeff. Pleasure chatting with you, and look forward to seeing you many more times.
Beautiful, man. You have a great day.
Thanks. You too.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast Midhurst. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpmidhurst.com. That's gnpmidhurst.com, or call 705-413-3775.